Okay, good morning then, and let's get set for the week here. Definitely the theme remains the same, of course dominated by Greek development, especially today. So well, actually let me bring in the calendar for today first, because we've got no data whatsoever this morning, and we've got some decent housing numbers out of the US, but not until 3 p.m. We've got some Eurozone consumer confidence then as well, but you know, today's not about data. Today is about Greece and the quite frankly ridiculous number of meetings that are taking place, and how this is all going to unfold, who knows. And you know, how it unfolds could well be the defining day of this saga. Could be, it may not be. You know how these things work, but definitely all about Greece. So just to kind of get the scheduling right here, at 10 o'clock, well, as far as I can understand it, and timings have changed, so they're liable to perhaps change again, but as far as it stands right now, at 10 o'clock, this is London time, Tsipras is going to have a pre-meeting meeting. So he's going to be meeting with Juncker, Draghi, Lagarde and Dijsselbloem and Eurozone finance ministers. Okay, so this is a 10 a.m. meeting. We then have an EU summit. Now this is the one that's been brought forward. I think this used to be at 2 o'clock. As far as I understand it now, that's been brought forward to 11:30. And then you have the Eurozone prime ministers and presidents will be meeting tonight at 6 o'clock. So, you know, you've certainly got every single player in this drama is present and correct, and you've got a lineup of meetings that, you know, everybody's there. So there is scope that perhaps some kind of progress can be made. Whether a deal can be hammered out today remains to be seen. So let's just give you a bit of an update, because markets generally, if I get rid of my calendar and have a look at the charts here, markets have opened, well, relatively positively ahead of the Greek events that are about to unfold. So you've seen equity markets open strongly. So the DAX, for example, is actually 2.7% above where it closed on Friday. It's like 300 points higher than where we closed on Friday. Euro stocks similarly 2.75% higher. US stocks positive, nowhere near to the same degree, but that's because the US markets had a pretty good week last week, especially towards the end of it, and so we're right up here anyway, and the S&P just shy of the all-time high, but the S&P's opened higher, 0.75%. Greek equity markets have opened at 6.5% to the good. You've got 2-year Greek yields narrowing quite sharply. The Bund has fallen off the cliff here. If you look on my Bund chart, well, we closed right up at the top side of the day's range on Friday, which was right up at the high points we'd seen on the 16th of June, just shy of the high of the week though, but look how it's sharply pulled off this morning. So you've got very positive equity space, you've got a very negative safe haven bond market space, and the only sort of outlier here is the euro, which has been a very confused trade anyway throughout this situation, but certainly euro strength overnight, taking euro dollar back up above the 114 handle, but then just over the last hour or so, a decent pullback, a 50 pip pullback to the pivot level. So actually the euro is flat on the day, unresponsive to the developments that took place over the weekend. So let's update you on the latest and why there's a bit of optimism ahead of these key meetings. So over the weekend, Tsipras, apparently they had a 5.5 hour meeting. This is the Greek cabinet, and have delivered new or updated proposals. Tsipras then briefed Merkel, Hollande and Juncker by phone yesterday, and then a statement from Tsipras' office said that the Prime Minister has presented the three leaders Greece's proposal for a mutually beneficial agreement that will give a definitive solution and not a postponement of addressing the problem. He's expected, so this is Tsipras now, is expected to meet the head of the European Commission, Tusk, first. Then it's the meeting at 10 o'clock with Juncker and Draghi and Lagarde. Then it's the 11:30 meeting with the Eurogroup, where they're set to discuss the proposals put forward by the Greek government over the weekend. And then all of these pre-meetings are then ahead of the main event, which is the summit tonight. This is the Eurozone Prime Ministers and Presidents, and this is starting at 6 p.m. So all the discussion daytime today is to try and get to a point where, a potential deal can get negotiated tonight. Because what happened end of last week was Merkel was basically saying, look, if you don't bother showing some concessions of your own, if you don't bother submitting a revised proposal that shows these concessions, well then there's really no point in us having a technical discussion at the summit on Monday night. If you can essentially agree a deal before the summit, well then, okay, we can move forward. So these pre-meetings are highly important, and it does mean, of course, we are going to get Greek headlines for the whole session. All right, you can pretty much forget everything else today and just listen for Greek news. Okay, this is going to shape everything. So it does seem like there's been some movement with these concessions. It's hard to judge. There's very little information about what's in this new proposal from Greece. Apparently, there's been some movement on their side with regards to raising tax. Apparently, there's been some movement on maybe scrapping the early retirement age. I'm not sure if there's been any movement on pension funds yet. Right, so Bill's just confirming that. So that's the one massive stumbling block that isn't in these proposals. And whether or not that is the defining stumbling block and no deal gets organised today, I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. So it's still very finely balanced. It's a 50-50 at best, I would say, in terms of this day panning out successfully. But you've definitely got markets preferring to price in. They're optimistic. So it's an optimistic beginning to the week. Okay. So this is how things are set. So just as a reminder, when might we get headlines? Well, you might get them before 10 a.m. So that is after Tsipras has met with the European Commission head Tusk. Then before the 10 a.m. meeting with Draghi and Lagarde and Juncker. Then you're going to get probably comments after that meeting, I imagine, before then the 11:30 a.m. meeting with the Eurogroup. How long that takes, who knows? That could take quite a while. It could almost take us right the way up to 6 p.m. before the full-on EU summit begins. So we'll see. Also today, thinking about the Greek banking system, on Friday the ECB lifted the ceiling on the ELA. We didn't really get a handle on exactly how much they lifted it by, rumours of different amounts, but essentially the ECB have given funding to Greece to allow their banks to make it to the end of the day. Okay, now that means therefore that the ECB are going to have to make another decision today whether or not to extend the ELA funding again, ready for tomorrow.
In regards to that little move lower we saw in the euro.
Let me just turn down now. So, comments from the ECB today on ELA funding are key. Apparently, last week 6 billion euros were withdrawn from the Greek banking system. The amount of liquidity in the Greek banking system is now down at, I think it's like a 12-year low. And there's already been 1 billion euros worth of pre-ordered deposit withdrawals for today. All right, so money is pouring out of this system, which makes the ECB's ELA funding, phenomenally important. And so news flow on that today. But it's difficult for the ECB because how do they make decisions on that without knowing the outcome of these meetings. So it's a difficult one to balance. All right, so it's going to be very interesting indeed. Let's see how things pan out. So yeah, just thinking technically, well, you know, if you're looking at the DAX, we're just shy, and actually let's look at some daily charts. Let me just change a few of these time frames. So looking at the DAX here, you know, we've lifted back towards, we've been in a downward channel. I don't have any lines on my chart indicating that channel. Give me a sec, I'll sort that out. So, oops, 1 second. So a very rough channel we're looking at is this kind of idea, you know, something like that. And so we've got a decent amount of room to move higher on the DAX and still remain within the downtrend we've seen over the last few months. Key top would be the one from last week, so the 11th of June high. Just thinking about Euro stocks. Let me bring this chart in here. It's a very similar pattern, of course, and you know, again, we have room to move higher without yet breaking any of these negative downward trends. But again, for Euro stocks, the 11th of June high, I'd say, is key. So we've got 40 points to get up to that point. So you know, positive open up above some of these high points we had last week, but that June 11th high is an important target, and so we'll see as positive or negative comments unfold today. You're going to get sharp reaction, and it will be the equity space that's easiest to trade it off. You know, I think it's a straightforward bad news, stocks lower, good news, stocks higher. Okay, even though we've had strong moves higher already, we can definitely get more movement to the upside if it really starts to look like we're going to get an end to this uncertainty and a deal being done. With the euro dollar, as I've already kind of indicated, very tricky to trade this Greek saga using the euro. You've already seen that this morning. So downside on the euros over the last hour, despite, you know, very buoyant equity markets. So I'd be a little bit careful. I think it's very hard to judge where the euro moves to as these comments come in. I would say that if you get positive headlines from Greece, you're probably going to see a sort of knee-jerk reaction higher for the euro, but don't get aggressive with that move because it's unlikely to last, and you may well see the whole lot reverse, which is basically what's happening right now. So be careful, I would say, trying to trade the euro off Greek headlines today. I think for the Bund, it's already shown its hand in that we've moved lower here off optimism about a deal. And so, you know, I think that's a fair enough trade. As it's already, we're just getting a pull back now to quite an interesting level on the Bund. This was the double bottom on the 17th of June, so a bit of resistance coming in around about 151.26. So that's a decent pullback. That's like a 50-tick pullback off the morning's low. So that's interesting in that you aren't seeing equities pull back here. They're still camped out at the top. So that's why I say equities are probably the most straightforward market to trade off any headlines as they come through. But, you know, certainly in inverse correlation, bunds and euro stocks. Just check about crude oil, which, you know, is really a bystander today. You know, oil, look how flat we've been. This is a weekly chart, and I showed you this downward trend line on Friday. So just be aware of that. That's a pretty important long-term technical situation. But yeah, just look at these weekly candles. Every single week for the last 8 weeks we've gone nowhere. So where a technical break of this downtrend might trigger things and get things moving further higher towards $65, whether, as has happened on Thursday and Friday last week, the downward trend holds firm, and this might tip the market back down towards the low of this 8-week range down at 56.50. We'll have to see, but it's a tricky one, and maybe any dollar movement today can just tip the balance. But just be aware of this longer term trend line that is right now. It's right here. We can't move any higher without breaking it. Okay, so if we get above $60.50, if we get up to like $61, then yeah, really that's the trend line being breached. So be aware of that. Okay, so that's it. Let's see how things unfold. Let's just finish back on the calendar here. So no data All right, so it's just going to be headlines. First meeting at 10 o'clock, second meeting at 11:30, third meeting at 6 p.m. Let me just see, let me just get this back up. In terms of bond auctions, nothing of note. A few Belgium, France, US coming to the market today, but these aren't going to have any issues. This is irrelevant alongside the information flow we're going to get on Greece. Okay, so definitely a day to be glued to your news feed and await these comments as they come in. All right, good luck. Thanks a lot.